this is what we call the event listing page, right? So NarrativeWave is a system that's largely based around detecting and communicating interesting events. That's what we're looking at here. On the left-hand side, you can see some filters and everything you would expect here. You can basically define what you're interested in looking at. Here I've selected some assets that we're going to demo later, but if you're a site manager, you might choose your site, or if you have been assigned some events, you might choose your name there and you'll see all of the events assigned to you. That kind of thing, fairly obvious. And in the events themselves here, you've got the kind of high level info, the event name, the asset, the start and stop. You've also got the ability to kind of assign priorities and add comments and assign users here as well. So that's all just basically listing the things that we've detected. So I'll go into one of these events now. Which one I'm going to go into? This second one here. So I've just clicked into one of those events. That takes me to basically the details of that event. And the general concept here is to give the user all the information they need to kind of first understand why this event has been created. That's something that people often forget, weirdly, but also then to be able to perform some kind of next step and get that issue resolved. And that might be assigning it to a technician, creating a work order, notifying an OEM, that kind of thing. But in this case, what we're detecting here is that an inverter's normalized power, and normalized by the kind of sum of the capacities of the panels that it's connected to, the normalized power is less than the normalized power of its neighbors. So in layman's terms, it's underperforming relative to the neighboring inverters there. And here we're saying it's actually also underperforming relative to itself in the past 365 days. So we kind of explain that at the top of the event, but in all of our events, we've got kind of contextual plots to prove to the user this is an event kind of worth raising. And here we can see the black line is the average performance of that inverter over the last year. And down here, we've got data points that are sufficiently far away from that line for us to determine that that's a kind of underperformance. And we scroll down again and we can see this blue line here is the normalized power, or the median of the normalized power of the neighbors. And the yellow line is the inverter that we're interested in. You can clearly see that there's a period in time here where it's performing less than it should do. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this in a minute and ask Robert's going to explain what the next steps would be. I'm very quickly going to just show you some of the ways that we can set up these analyses. We've kind of alluded to the fact that NarrativeWave is flexible and can be molded to fit kind of exactly Longroad's requirements. So I'm just going to touch on that. And we haven't got enough time to kind of dive into all the details here. So please just reach out if you want to kind of deep dive on what all this is. But so, for example, this is what we call our insight tree. This is kind of no code user interface. It allows a user to build their own analyses without having to write any code. And that's kind of particularly good for engineers who don't necessarily write code every day. Some do, and actually in Robert's team, many do. So each of these blocks represents some kind of Python code. You can look at that Python code. You can go all the way to the Python code and basically have access to this list of preset pieces of code. Each of these scripts is basically one of those blocks that you saw on the previous screen. So we kind of believe fairly fundamentally that the underlying logic of those checks should be completely accessible to the user in such a way that they can even copy it and edit it and create another one and scan through all of the previous pieces of code that have ever been used. Okay, so I hope that's super quick. I hope that's kind of told a story about how we're able to kind of flex NarrativeWave such that it solves Longroad specific problems.